Tune in for a tale, words that set sail.
Digital Splendor, Literature Illuminated.
You know that impossible question, how do you describe a color red to someone who's never seen color? Well, that's kind of the whole idea behind the 1884 classic Flatland. Today, we're going to dive into this seriously mind-bending story that's one part sharp social commentary and one part brilliant thought experiment. All right, so let's jump right in. Our guide for this whole thing is a character named simply A Square. He's a respectable middle-class professional, and he's going to take us on a journey that completely shatters his, and maybe our, understanding of reality. So picture this. A square's whole world is, well, it's flat. Like, perfectly flat. Think of a giant sheet of paper that goes on forever. And everyone living there, they're shapes. You've got lines, triangles, squares, the whole geometric gang. They can slide around all they want. But the idea of up or down, it just doesn't exist for them. There's no way to leave the paper. And that's the central problem, right? The big question. If your whole life is just forward, backward, left and right, how on earth could someone explain up to you? It's not just a strange idea. The word itself would be total gibberish. It's a direction that's literally outside your reality.
Okay, so let's dig into what daily life is actually like in this bizarre two-dimensional universe. Welcome to Flatland.
This is where things get trippy. If you were a Flatlander and you looked at another shape, it doesn't matter what it is, a triangle, a square, even a perfect circle, you wouldn't see it as a shape. Nope. From your perspective, right on the edge, all you would ever see is a single straight line. But here's the kicker. In Flatland, your shape isn't just your shape, it's everything. It defines your job, your social status, your whole life. It's a super rigid society built entirely on, well, on geometry. And this creates this really strict social ladder. I mean, check this out. At the very bottom, you have women, who are just straight lines. Then you get the soldiers, who are these sharp, pointy triangles. You work your way up through the middle class, all the way to the nobility, who have lots and lots of sides. And who's at the absolute peak? The priests. They're circles, basically polygons with so many sides they look perfectly round, and they're seen as the height of perfection.
So how do you move up in the world? Well, you don't. Your kids do. It's this law of nature where a son always has one more side than his father. So a square's son becomes a pentagon, and his son will be a hexagon. It's this super slow generational crawl up the social ladder. And if you're born in your regular shape, forget it. You're basically treated like a criminal.
And this is where the author really takes a shot at his own Victorian society. The rules for women are incredibly harsh. Since they're just lines, they're nearly invisible head-on, but their points are super sharp, so they're seen as dangerous. This whole female code is all about controlling them, and it's a pretty clear commentary on how women were treated back in the 1880s.
All right, so before our square's world gets completely blown apart, something interesting happens. He has this dream, a vision really. He sees a world that's even more limited than his own, and it kind of sets the stage for what's about to happen to him. He dreams of a place called Lineland, and it's exactly what it sounds like. A universe that is just one single endless line. The people there are just points and smaller lines, and all they can do is move back and forth. The idea of moving sideways makes no sense, and up, that's just fantasy. For them, that one line is the beginning and end of everything. So our guy, A Square, tries to explain his two-dimensional world to the king of Lineland. And the king basically calls him crazy. I mean, how could there possibly be another direction besides forward and back? It's impossible. And this frustration R Square feels, well, it's the exact same thing he's about to face himself. Perfect foreshadowing.
And that brings us to the main event, the climax of the whole story. A visitor arrives from Spaceland, a place with a third dimension, a reality that, for our square, is completely and utterly unimaginable.
Seriously, put yourself in his shoes for a second. You're locked in your room, suddenly a voice booms out. But it's not coming from the door or the window, it's coming from inside you. And then this thing appears. It looks like a circle, but then it shrinks down to a tiny dot and vanishes. And then it comes back. It's breaking every single rule of reality as you know it.
So what's he actually seen? He's witnessing a three-dimensional sphere passing through his two-dimensional world. As the sphere first touches his flat plane, it's just a point. As it moves through, its cross-section looks like a circle that gets bigger and bigger, then smaller and smaller, until it's a point again and poof, it's gone. This one visual is the absolute core of the book. And this visitor, the sphere, is desperately trying to explain what he is. He's saying, look, you see a circle, but I'm not a circle. I'm a solid. What you see is just one slice of me. But a square? He just can't get his head around it. The concept is too alien.
So talking isn't working. The sphere decides to show, not tell. He literally pulls A square up into that impossible, non-existent direction and lifts him right out of Flatland. And for the first time, wow. A square sees his entire world from above. He sees inside houses. He sees all his neighbors at once. Everything is laid out like a map. His mind is just blown.
So now he knows. He's seen the ultimate truth. But what happens when you come back with a revelation that is just too big, too strange for anyone else to possibly believe?
He comes back to Flatland, a completely different, well, square. He's seen a higher reality, and now he's on a mission. He feels this burning need to preach the gospel of the third dimension to everyone, to free them from their flat little world.
And how does that go? Yeah, not well. Everyone thinks he's lost his mind, he's a lunatic, and the ruling class, the circles, they don't just think he's crazy, they think he's dangerous. This idea of a third dimension, it's heresy. It could topple their entire perfectly ordered society.
And this is where a story from way back in 1884 feels like it could have been written yesterday. So what's the big takeaway for us? What are we supposed to learn from our square's journey? Well, A square gets thrown in prison for life, and his story becomes this incredible cautionary tale. It's a huge lesson in intellectual humility, right? A warning about being so sure of what you know that you refuse to even consider ideas that challenge your reality.
Which leaves us with one last, kind of unsettling question. If A square was living in his 2D world, totally unaware of the 3D world all around him, what about us? What unseen dimensions, whether they're scientific or philosophical or something else entirely, might be right here, right now, just beyond the limits of what we can perceive? What if we're the ones living in Flatland?